for us to understand temperate cyclone, if you want to understand temperate cyclone, you need to understand two concepts. One concept, all of you pay attention on the board. One concept is concept of air mass. The other concept is the concept of the fronts. And from the fronts, we will understand temperate cyclone. अब air mass क्या होता है और fronts क्या होते हैं और temperate cyclone क्या होते हैं? Mid latitude के weather के लिए, when you say, if you look at the weather reports of the mid latitude, they always talk about अब ठंड होने वाली है because it will be invaded by the cold air mass. अभी गर्मी होने वाली है because it will be invaded by the warm air mass. So mid latitude is in middle. Above that you have the cold polar air. Below it you will have the warm tropical one. So here in the cold region, you can have cold air mass. Okay, huge big packets of air called as cold air mass, like from Siberia, which is in Russia, in the higher latitude beyond 66, is very, very cold. इतना ठंडा होता है that the air is very cold above it. Now suppose that whole cold air from Siberia starts hitting USA. So what will happen to USA? USA will start feeling cold. Here in the tropics, you have warm air masses with big packets of air. These can invade the temperate belt, and US can then feel, or for that matter, Eurasia mein, the countries then can feel the warm conditions. So what happens is the weather in the temperate belt is affected by cold air masses or the warm air mass. And we know that at around 60 degree latitude, what kind of pressure do we have? 60 degree north latitude पे कैसा pressure है? Low pressure है. अच्छा 30 degree पे कैसा pressure है? High pressure. And 90 also you have high pressure. So obviously they are moving towards this. Why are they moving here? Because it will move towards the low pressure. So if this dominates cold condition, if this dominates warm conditions. So what happens to the weather of the temperate belt? It is affected by cold polar air masses or it is affected by warm tropical air masses. Okay. So what is the concept of air mass? Let's look at it and then we will understand the frontal cyclone and the temperate cyclone. तो अब यहाँ पे देखते हैं ये I am drawing, I'm looking at this. I am looking at I'm looking at America. ये tropical belt है 30 degree. So it is affected by, it can be affected by maritime tropical air mass. It can be affected by tropical air masses. Let's forget maritime and continent for now. It is affected by tropical air masses which are warm. It can be affected by polar air masses which can be cold. It can be affected by Arctic air masses which is also very cold. Now these air masses are big packet of the cold air that can affect this region. क्या डोमिनेट करेगा उसके हिसाब से वेदर कंडीशन इफेक्ट होगी. This cold air can also be formed on the ocean called as maritime, can be formed on the continent called as continental. The tropical warm air can be formed on the ocean. The tropical warm air can be seen on the continent called as continental tropical. तो warm air तो कहीं पे भी बन सकती है. ओशन के ऊपर उसको मैरीटाइम बोलोगे, कॉन्टिनेंट के ऊपर उसको कॉन्टिनेंट बोलोगे. कोल्ड एयर कहीं पे भी बन सकती है. ओशन के ऊपर मैरीटाइम कहोगे, कॉन्टिनेंट के ऊपर कॉन्टिनेंट कहोगे. तो कॉन्टिनेंटल पोलर, मैरीटाइम पोलर, कॉन्टिनेंटल ट्रॉपिक, मैरीटाइम ट्रॉपिक. अब डिपेंड करता है कि कंडीशन कौन सा वाला, वेदर इट इज दिस एयर ए, दिस एयर बी, दिस एयर सी, दिस एयर डी. What dominates, that will determine कि यूएस में टेम्परेचर क्या होगा और यूएस में ह्यूमिडिटी क्या होगी. Why ह्यूमिडिटी? अगर कॉन्टिनेंटल पोलर आ रहा है तो क्या हो जाएगा? कोल्ड एंड ड्राई, कोल्ड एंड ड्राई. If maritime polar is coming, it will be warm and cold and moist, cold and moist. If this is coming, you will have warm, and if empty is coming, maritime tropic is coming, you will have warm and moist. If this is coming, you will have warm and dry. तो ये air masses बहुत important role play करते हैं weather system of the mid latitude. Is this clear? So this mid latitude, it plays a very important role there. Now, so here, अब ये जब interact करते हैं, कई बार तो क्या होता है, they don't, it's not that only one interact है, तो यहाँ low pressure, तो ये भी interact करेगा और ये भी interact करेगा, ये भी interact करेगा, ये भी interact करेगा, तो ये low pressure belt है, तो सब interact करते, तो when they start interacting, when the air masses, इसको air mass कहते हैं, जो बहुत बड़ा air packet of air है, when they start interacting, इसको आप क्या बोलते हैं, एक front की तरह बन गया, it starts having the front. What is front? एक दूसरे के आमने सामने आ जाना, they are coming face to face. When these air masses come face to face, you call it as a front. Now what happens? Suppose, let me give you a case here. Suppose this is the surface of USA. This is the surface of USA. On the surface of USA we have, on the surface of USA we have one warm air mass, and let's say we have one cold air mass. We have one cold air mass interacting with each other. ये दो air masses है. It is possible that you can have a warm air mass, tropical वाला, interacting with, let's say, the polar वाला air mass, warm air mass and the cold air mass. Polar air mass and the tropical air mass, they are interacting with one another, and this is a belt of low pressure. This is a belt of low pressure where they are interacting. So this was coming like this. This was coming like this. दोनों ऐसे ऐसे आ, अब होगा क्या? What will start happening? Yes, correct. Warm air mass will start rising, क्योंकि it is the tendency of the warm air to rise. So as the warm air mass starts rising, as this warm air mass starts rising, it leads to what? जैसे जैसे ऊपर जाएगा तो क्या करेगा? तो ये बारिश देता जाएगा, पर ये राइज तब करेगा जब एक दूसरे की, लेट्स से इट्स लाइक दिस, वार्म एयर मास, कोल्ड एयर मास, दोनों एक दूसरे के सामने ऐसे खड़े हुए, दे आर नॉट इंटरैक्टिंग. Will something happen? No, nothing will happen. One has to move. This is, let's say, warm or cold. One has to move in each other's territory. One has to move in others' territory. तभी तो ऊपर उठेगा. अगर एक दूसरे के बाजू बाजू खड़े ही हैं तो कुछ भी नहीं हो रहा है. अगर वार्म एयर मास कोल्ड एयर मास की टेरिटरी में चला गया तब ये ऊपर उठेगा. इसको क्या कहते हैं? When the warm air mass moves into the territory of the cold air mass, you call this as a warm front. When the cold air mass moves into the territory of the warm air mass, you call it as a cold front. ठीक है? Now, so what type of front यानी they are interfacing each other. एक दूसरे के साथ face में side by side. They are just interacting. So stationary front. कुछ नहीं कर रहे हैं, बस एक दूसरे के सामने खड़े हुए हैं, stationed है, stationary front. जब the hand which has finger is warm, okay? So अगर ये warm air mass है और ये cold air mass, when the warm air mass moves into the territory of the cold air mass, what do we say? It is a warm front. When the cold air mass moves into the territory of the warm air mass, we call it as a cold front. Now you tell me, चाहे warm front बने चाहे cold front बने, उठेगा क्या? warm front ही उठेगा. तो warm front ही, तो चाहे ये इसकी चाहे ये इसकी टेरिटरी में जाए या ऑपोजिट हो, वो उसकी टेरिटरी में जाए, उठेगा क्या? उठेगा तो वार्म फ्रंटिंग, ठीक है, नीचे जाएगा कोल्ड फ्रंट। इवन इफ दिस इज मूविंग, इवन इफ दिस इज मूविंग हियर, उठेगा तो वार्म फ्रंटिंग। तो बेसिकली देयर आर टू टाइप्स ऑफ मोशंस दैट आर हैपनिंग, one is the horizontal motion and the other is vertical motion. Again, this is a warm air mass, the finger with the hand with a ring. Okay, this is a warm air mass, this is a cold air mass. So warm air mass चाहे cold air mass की टेरिटरी में जाए ऊपर उठेगा तो warm air mass, चाहे cold air mass warm air mass की टेरिटरी में जाए ऊपर उठेगा तो warm air mass ही, because it's the nature of the warm air to rise. Always the warm air mass will rise. Always the warm air mass will rise. As the warm air mass is rising, it leads to different type. It leads to rainfall. Okay, that is what is the cyclone. Again, as they are moving. Okay, now one was horizontal movement, the other was vertical movement, and then there is also a circulatory movement that is involved, because there's a temperate cyclone that is being developed. पूरा cyclone develop हो रहा है, तो तीन टाइप के movement आपके develop होते हैं. You can do what, you can have a look at it what happens in the temperate cyclone. ये वाला GIF है, have a look here. इसको ध्यान से देखें, ओहो, इसको ध्यान से देखें, ये ठीक है, pay attention here. Can you see a warm air mass and a cold air mass? Both of them are stationed. Now, can you see warm air mass has moved into the cold air mass territory? Can you see that the warm air mass is rising up? Can you see clouds getting formed? 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 Can you see warm air mass ऊपर उठता जा रहा है, इसलिए उसका बेस नीचे, horizontal base कम होता जा रहा है क्योंकि वो ऊपर उठता जा रहा है. So here, pay attention here. Okay, very calm. Here, this is the one. It starts off with stationary front. एक दूसरे के बाजू में खड़े, अब एक दूसरे की टेरिटरी में घुसेंगे. वार्म एयर मास कोल्ड एयर मास की टेरिटरी में गया, कोल्ड एयर मास वार्म एयर मास की टेरिटरी में गया. वार्म एयर मास starts rising. Warm air mass starts rising. As warm air is rising, there's formation of clouds. There's formation of the clouds. There's formation of the clouds. And what happens is there will come a stage when the warm air mass, we'll see it here, there will come a stage when the warm air mass is completely above the cold air mass. This is warm air mass, this is cold air mass. Warm air mass starts rising. Comes a stage where warm air mass is completely above the cold air mass, and this marks stability. जब warm air mass ऊपर आ गई, cold air mass नीचे चला गया, अब stability आ जाएगी. तो ये आपकी cyclone होती है, temperate cyclone होती है. So this was your temperate cyclone. You can have a look here also. I'm trying to show warm air mass and cold air mass. यहाँ पे आपका एक low pressure develop होता है नीचे. Let's say you have a low pressure developing here. As low pressure develops, movement ऐसा होगा, they will move into each other's territory, as well as there will be upliftment. So here what happens? They are coming up together, they are moving up together, they are coming together, and now they start rising. तो ये है let's say cold air mass, let's say ये warm air mass. अब क्या होगा? धीरे धीरे warm air mass will be risen up. धीरे the warm air mass will be risen up. Cold air mass and warm air mass move into each other's territory, and the warm air mass, can you see yellow is shrinking in size because yellow is moving up. The yellow is the warm air mass, it starts moving. So air mass, two air mass interacting, warm air mass moves up, and once the warm air mass is completely up, it will mark the end of the cycle. So low pressure already है, वहां पे जब air masses interact करते हैं तब ये होता है, और आपकी जो रेनफॉल होती है उसको हम फ्रंटल रेनफॉल कहते हैं. ठीक है.